Hello again, Dezz Asante here from the Tech Muse Academy with another mixlessons.com video quick tip. This one is in regards to something I get asked a lot about and have many a conversation about, which is what's the ideal way to record a drummer in a home studio environment, a potentially less than ideal acoustic space. So what I've done, with the help of my friends at Long and McQuade, the music store that I have worked at for quite some time, is I've decided to set up a little demonstration as to what can be done in the absolute worst of recording environment, which in our case is a busy, open, public, noisy scenario. And we're going to record clean, pristine, beautiful sounding multi-track drums with microphones on every cymbal and every drum, room mics near, mid, and far, kick drum outside, inside, snare drum top and bottom. We're going to capture beautiful drums, and we're going to do it in the worst case scenario, a noisy public environment. Okay, so let me turn you over to the little experiment here we did at Long and McQuade, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Okay, so here we are in potentially one of the worst recording environments possible. We're at Long and McQuade in Oshawa, Ontario. It's a public retail music store. We got pages going over the PA, music on the radio, and yet I'm going to attempt to record my drums here. So I've got a little bass groove that you won't be able to hear. Actually, you might be able to hear, depending on how this works out. We'll find out in a minute. And I'm going to track the drums here in the drum department at Long and McQuade. And there you go. So we're going to bring that back to the lab and see what we can do with it. And I'll meet you there. Okay, so here we are back in the lab. I've taken the fruits of my labor, as it were, which consisted of two things. One, I recorded the stereo audio off of the Roland drum brain, just so that was the sound I was listening to while I was playing. And I also recorded the MIDI that came off of the drum module. So it's a MIDI representation of my performance. And then I've brought both of those things back home into the lab, and I've created an instance of a software plugin called Superior Drummer. And I'm just going to use the MIDI file to trigger the drums. Let me show you how that's done. Okay, so this is what we ended up with at the end of that short session. So this was the bass groove I was jamming to. This is the stereo audio of the drums, which at the moment I have muted. And this is the MIDI that I captured. And just to have a look at that, this is the MIDI data. So these dots and slashes all just represent the notes that I hit and when I hit them and how hard I hit them and so on and so forth. That's your standard MIDI information, okay? So what I'm gonna do first, I'll just play you a little bit of what we got going on here. Okay, so what you're hearing there is the little bass groove and just the stereo audio off of the drum module. So I've created an instance here of Superior Drummer, which is one of my favorite software drum instruments. And I'll just pull up the interface so you can see what it looks like. This is Superior Drummer here. And I've got some sounds queued up. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the MIDI file that I had recorded and just drop it down onto that track. And I'm going to mute. In fact, I'm going to mute that at the event level so I don't have to think about it. And I'm going to play you the drums through Superior. Okay, so that's the sound of the drum performance being sent through a software instrument called Superior Drummer from TuneTrack, which I like a lot and I highly recommend. So the thing that I can do now, and you'll see it as it's playing, you'll see what's happening here. I'll just hit play again. Okay, so you can see the drums and cymbals being triggered by the MIDI file. So the nice thing I like about Superior Drummer is it allows me to actually export the microphones that were included in the sample session. So you're actually getting quite a few different things here, more so than you might have the opportunity to take advantage of in a home studio with the gear that you have. I'm talking about a mic on the kick drum inside and outside, snare drum top and bottom, all the direct toms, room mics near, mid, and far range, all kinds, a Yamaha sub kick, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, all kinds of interesting drums and cymbals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually export that information out of the plugin so that I can close the plugin, mute the MIDI track, put that in a backup folder, and have a nice full multi-track drum mix to work with in the rest of my my mixing process. Okay, so I'll show you how that's done in Superior. Excuse me. If I go to the bounce page, what I can do here is I hit the record button. There's a few settings that you can mess around with. If you're interested in digging deeper, by all means, look at the documentation on TuneTrack's website. But I'm just going to arm this to record. And what I have to do is actually let the track play all the way from front to back in real time. And it's going to capture all of the sample information that I'm using in this particular performance. And it's going to render out an audio file that represents every single microphone. So I'm gonna get this started, and I'll sort of skip through it. I won't make you wait and watch the the timeline go by. And then when it's through, I'll let you have a look at the results. Okay, so it's finished playing through and recording the samples that are involved in this performance. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce those samples out. I'm going to choose a folder. I guess for the sake of this demonstration, I'll put it on my my desktop. And we're going to do new folder. We'll just call this drums. Create, and we're going to save them in there. So that's going to take a minute, and it's going to render out a high bit depth 24-bit audio wave file of every single microphone that would have been placed around this drum kit in the original recording sessions that took place when they created this sample library. So we'll give it just a minute, and I'll catch you on the flip side, and we'll have a look at what the result is. Okay, so that process is finished. I'm just going to close out Superior Drummer. Now, it doesn't look like anything has happened here, but what I need to do is import the audio tracks that I've just created. So what the way that's done in Cubase is I'm going to go to my File menu, which you can't see on the screen right now, and I'm going to import audio files. In fact, I'm going to do this a simpler way. I'm just going to open up the folder. This is the folder now. All of the microphones have been exported. I'm going to grab them all, and I'm just going to drop them into my Cubase session. Put them on different tracks, and we'll just hit OK there. And we'll line them up. Now, what you're going to notice is that the drums are going to sound a little different because inside the plugin, I had some of the microphones muted and so on and so forth. So in the import that we've just created, you're going to hear all of the room mics and so forth as well. So let me just mute out everything else, and let's have a listen to what we've got. If we bring up our mixer, okay, so we end up with, let's have a look there. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 tracks of our drum mix. So now let's see if we can line this up because I exported just from when the audio began. Let's try that. And let's just line that up. Oops, let's change our snap value. Okay, so it's just a little off. Let's just line that up just nice. Right there. That's about right. And now we have an 18-track drum mix of high bit depth audio that we recorded in a absolutely less than ideal acoustic environment. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a minute and just organize that session a little bit and adjust some levels and give it a very general, quick, basic mix. And I'll get back to you when that's done, and we'll have a listen to the whole thing in its entirety. Okay, I'll catch you on the flip side. Okay, so I've taken a few minutes, about 10, 15 minutes, and just done a real quick mix on the drums themselves. And I've printed an export, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to sync out the the new drums, I suppose, for lack of a better way of putting it. I'm going to sync it with the video of me originally recording so that you can sort of hear and see the whole thing in its final glory. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you find this helpful to you, or hopeful rather, that you can be capable of getting some really good drum sounds even in a far less than ideal acoustic scenario, in a situation that doesn't allow you to to put up mics and bang around and make a whole lot of noise, and doesn't afford you the expense of doing such a thing. It's very difficult to get high quality professional drum sounds with cheap gear in a poor environment. So this is a way to overcome that if you are wrestling with that issue like a lot of us are. So sit back, enjoy the groove, and we'll see you on the next quick tip.